how the imaginary cartoon world of a teenager with autism is being brought to life.
I know! This is a job for Buzz Lightyear!
It's this time of year when we can feel at our lowest, but for some, the feeling is overwhelming. The North West has the highest rate of suicide in the country. Some choose to take their own lives on the region's motorway network. I've been looking at the impact of these cases and finding out what's being done to prevent them.
Changed our lives greatly, hasn't it? Left a massive hole, massive hole. You know, we've really suffered without him, haven't we? And he leaves behind a twin.
Ben Fitchett from Rochdale was just 14 when he killed himself by jumping from a motorway bridge.
He walked out that door that morning and I wouldn't have believed there was anything wrong with him because I got up and said goodbye to him. He went to do his paper round. I offered him a lift. Wasn't the best of days, but you know, we offered him a lift because he'd be tired after that walk. And that morning, I wouldn't have ever believed I'd never see him again.
Mike Gary was able to prevent a suicide quite by chance. He was travelling home when he came across a young man who was about to jump off a bridge.
I just ran up to him. I put my arms around him there like that. And I said, "It's not happening, mate. You're not doing this today." People were driving past and starting to blow horns and pull up.
What's that about?
It's like rubbernecking, isn't it? People started to pull up. People started to stop. A crowd gathered. I wanted to ground him as much as possible and talk about real life. And I told him I loved him. I screamed into his ear and I said, "I love you, mate. I love you. I know it doesn't feel like anyone else in the world loves you now, but at this very present moment in time, I really love you and I want you to be safe." And I kept saying to him, "Please come back over the barrier."
With the help of a passing cyclist, Mike managed to get the young man back onto the pathway where he was taken away by the police. Mike thinks we all need to show more compassion for people involved in incidents like these.
I've been on trains whereby somebody's taken a life and it slowed our trains down and people have been complaining about meetings and things. And I have no sympathy for someone who's going to miss a meeting whereby at the other end of a line someone's son's died and in such a desperately sad way as well. So no, I do not understand people's intolerance. Some people are in really desperate situations that need support and help. And moaning because you're late for a meeting because you've not made a deal is an incredibly selfish thing to do.
The police attend attempted suicides on an almost weekly basis. Fortunately, many people can be coaxed down. In some cases, a specially trained negotiator like Sergeant Nigel Taberner is called to the scene.
You've got to be able to listen to people, and that's what we do. We try and get alongside them. We try to establish a bond with them, a trust, so that they feel that they can talk to us, so that we can help them see that suicide is a permanent solution to what could be a temporary problem, and there are other things that are available. There are networks there that are able to support them and help them through that.
What about actions of members of the public? Because some people see an attempted suicide as such a selfish act, particularly when it affects somebody else's journey.
You know, as a motorist, you can understand why they would be frustrated. You know, being diverted off the motorway, lanes being closed, traffic building up, they're late for work. What I can't understand is the reaction that you get from some of them, you know, in terms of people shouting, beeping horns, which can make life incredibly difficult.
Are more officers receiving more training in dealing with people with mental health issues?
Yes, we do a lot of training for officers who would be the first responders to an incident. So if there was an incident now, it would be a police officer who's on duty that would go to it.
But it's too late for Ben Fitchett. His parents wish he'd been able to speak to someone before he took his own life.
If I saw somebody on a bridge now or anywhere that looked vulnerable, I would stop. I wouldn't drive past, because you don't know whether you would be able to save that person's life. Who knows, if somebody stopped and spoke to Ben that day, maybe it would have changed his outcome.
Hayley Pomfreeman lives near a bridge over the M60. She started a petition which has resulted in the Department of Transport promising it'll look into the height of the fences.
I started the petition this year after there was 2 deaths on the bridges, one in March and then the second one was in July, and this time it was a lady. And I'd been for a walk down here with my children, and just the sheer height, the noise, everything, just thought something needs to be done. We can't have any more people jumping off bridges.
And in a world where health and safety plays such a role in all of our lives, it is quite interesting that this is allowed to be like this.
It's just shocking. I think it's, it's the way it was built, and nobody's really thought about it. And, I want this to be a precedent set by the Department of Transport. They do this bridge and they carry on doing all the bridges.
The North West has the highest suicide rate in England. Almost 4 times as many men kill themselves as women. All these deaths are preventable.
On this approach to a bridge over the M60, someone's written this graffiti. Please think about it. You would be missed. The sentiment is obviously genuine, but it's important that those who are contemplating suicide know there are support services available.
The charity Self-Help Services has just trebled its facilities for suicidal people. It runs a number of nighttime sanctuaries across Greater Manchester, which are a safe place for people to go and get help and support when they feel at their lowest ebb. Suicidal thoughts can be hard for other people to understand. Most of us can't put ourselves in somebody else's shoes, and we think nothing is ever that bad. How do you counsel people who feel at that critical point?
I think what we're very keen to say to everybody is that things can always get better and will get better. How you're feeling now isn't how you'll feel maybe in an hour's time, or certainly not in a day's time, because things do change, things are fluid, and it's about helping people and saying to them, we've helped so many other people who've been where you are at now, and we've got them through it, and you will get through it. It's about instilling hope in people and giving them tools and techniques to be able to manage the anxiety or the depression or whatever has caused the crisis.
How do you work with the police?
We work very closely with Greater Manchester Police, because it's really important that there is an alternative available to the police when they come into contact with individuals who are experiencing levels of mental distress. So the police can now bring people who they don't feel need to be taken to A&E. Instead, they can bring them here to the sanctuary where they can receive support in a safe environment.
The Fitchetts don't want any other family to lose a loved one to suicide, and say we must be more aware and understanding of mental health issues, both in ourselves and in others.
There is hope at the end of any situation. You just need to have the right input to support you along the rest of your journey, because the journey hasn't got to stop at that crisis point. There's more to life than, reaching yourself in a corner and making that decision, isn't there? Because then I know that whatever Ben's decision was at that time, we would have been there. Whatever he felt he was struggling with, we would have been there. We'd had to walk the end of the world to sort out whatever it was, and nothing's that bad, nothing.
For details of organisations offering advice and support, go online to bbc.co.uk/actionline, or call the BBC Action Line to hear recorded information on 08000 565 450. Lines are open 24 hours and are free from most landlines. Some networks and mobile operators will charge. Most of us at some point have racked up debt and then kicked ourselves when it turns out we didn't get a great deal. Well, according to critics, that's what's happened with our new hospitals, paid for under a scheme known as the Private Finance Initiative. Dr. Phil Hammond has travelled across the north to find out if we know exactly how much the final bill will be and whether it's good value for money.
The Private Finance Initiative, an innovative way for private companies to build and maintain our NHS hospitals. In effect, a long-term deal to get spanking new hospitals without paying up front.
When PFI was introduced in the late 90s, I warned there were risks. On stage, I used to say PFI stands for paying for it indefinitely. If we got the deal wrong, it'd end up costing us an arm and a leg. So what's happened?
I'm going to take the temperature of some of the deals struck for new hospitals across the north.
Best use of public money ever invented, PFI.
Tameside General Hospital in Greater Manchester. Around 4 years old and facing big bills.
So what is Tameside actually going to cost? Time for a game of Play Your PFIs Right.
It's simple. After crunching the numbers, I say how much it costs to build. In this case, 112
million.
Taxpayers guess how much we'll shell out on loans, interest and fees once the PFI contract's up. Let's give it a whirl.
300 million, higher or lower?
Lower. Higher.
Higher. When you're a nurse, you probably worked in that hospital, haven't you?
I have.
It cost 112 to build. The final amount will end up paying 441 million.
Crazy.
Who's ripped us off?
Do you want to find out and go round their house?
PFIs, yeah.
It's absolutely disgusting.
Do you think that's a good use of public money?
No, I don't, no.
We asked the Trust and the PFI company HICL, is it good value for money? HICL said, ask the Trust. It said in a statement its PFI had in fact delivered value for money and patients enjoyed a new and modern facility. It had benefited from lessons learned in previous PFI negotiations. Critics say PFI is pricey because trusts could build and run their hospitals at a fraction of the cost. But government wanted PFI.
PFI allowed governments to pre-spend future taxes. So I'm in government for 5 years, and instead of spending what I've got in these 5 years, I can spend 30 years ahead. Now that is a drug for politicians. There's no politician invented who won't inject that into his veins. And I think we've paid way too much as taxpayers for what we've got.
So how much extra can PFI cost? Out of 6 trusts approached, only Newcastle gave a comparison. It built this Ebola unit itself for around £250,000. It says under PFI it would have cost 3 times that. It did it in a month. Under PFI it would have taken
up to 2 years. But there's a range of checks, insurers, funding, maintenance costs, further reviews. It just takes a long, long time.
These special isolation doors were fitted by the hospital for £5,000. It says under PFI they would have cost £24,000, including maintenance and management fees of £650 a year for 28 years. Pinderfield's General Hospital in Wakefield, run by Mid Yorkshire Hospitals Trust.
The capital cost was 312 million. But how much will we end up paying in 2043? Yes, 2043 when the contract's up. 1,600 million. What do you think of that?
Disgusting. It is, yeah. Horrendous, isn't it?
This year the Trust is heading for an overspend of £9 million. It's cutting costs, closing services in other hospitals to help pay.
We've already lost hundreds of beds when we closed Pontefract Hospital at the start of the PFI, and now we're facing losing over 100 more beds in the district. So that's a dramatic impact. The hospital itself is full to bursting.
We asked, is this a good deal for the taxpayer? The PFI company here was also HICL, which said again, ask the Trust. It said in a statement, PFI had provided value for money. At the time, it was the only way of providing these state-of-the-art facilities. Cumberland Infirmary in Carlisle. Recently, the Trust lights almost went out. It couldn't pay the electricity bill.
It's typical of many of the early PFIs. The staff say the beds are too close together, risking cross-contamination, and the wards are often closed due to infection. And patients have had problems too.
Like Denise Moses, a wheelchair user.
Some of the consultant rooms aren't big enough for wheelchair users. The changing rooms aren't big enough either. If I go to the toilet, I have to go in backwards and try and turn around, which I cannot do. If I do get in and do that, I can't close the door. So everyone knows what I'm doing.
The Trust has recently had a £42 million bailout. One issue, its annual PFI payments.
When it was set up, an American company was called in to provide insurance. They went over the deal with a fine-tooth comb.
Andy Black witnessed the negotiations.
These deals looked so good to them that they were feeling around, say, what's the catch? And it appears that there wasn't a catch, you know, that they were just that good.
So the man on the inside didn't think it was value for money. What do the people of Carlisle think?
Time for another game of Play Your PFIs Right. How much do you think the taxpayer will pay? Do you think they'll pay 67 million? Do you think they'll pay higher?
Higher.
Or lower? Higher, okay.
Higher.
Higher.
Lower?
Higher or lower? Lower? The final amount we'll end up paying back for the Cumberland Infirmary is £654 million.
Unbelievable, isn't it? Eh?
Goodness me.
Flipping it.
That figure, based on government estimates, covers repaying the loan to build the hospital and annual fees to operate and maintain the building. We asked for a statement. This time there was an argument. The Trust said it was concerned about the significant overcharging and the service provided by its PFI company. The PFI company, Health Management Carlisle, said there was no truth whatsoever in the overcharging allegations. It had identified areas where millions could be saved, but the Trust had not pursued them. It had also introduced risk-based cleaning and measures to improve performance. And now the $64,000 million question. How much are all of our PFI hospitals here in the Northwest going to cost when they're paid off?
Is it an arm? Is it a leg? Or is it the entire body? Let's play our final game of Play Your PFIs Right. Sorry to keep you waiting, sir. The build cost of all the hospitals built under PFI in this region, $1,345 million. What do you think we're going to end up paying? $2,000 million. Higher or lower?
Higher.
Higher. $4,000 million. Higher or lower?
Oh gosh, higher.
The final cost will be $10,300 million.
I'm appalled.
And it takes a lot to appall you, I would imagine, sir.
Well, it does, yeah.
So, what of the politicians who originally championed PFI? Wouldn't it be good to hear from them? Well, former Deputy Prime Minister John Prescott said he was too busy, apparently. Former Health Secretary Alan Milburn refused to be interviewed. But former Health Secretary Frank Dobson, he did agree to speak to us. Good old Frank.
The hospitals are built. They are full of top-flight modern equipment. Before the PFI, most of them were run down.
So it was almost like a Dobson's choice. It was PFI or nothing.
I think I made the right decisions, and if you want to ask the people in Carlisle or the people in Durham or the people in Burnley or the people in Blackburn whether it was right to get the hospitals built and get the money sorted out later, I think they'd be with me.
Well, we've actually interviewed people in these hospitals, and yes, they're pleased to have the building, but they're saying the deal itself is awful.
Well, renegotiate the deal.
Can that be done?
Yeah.
With public money?
Well, probably.
The current government is persisting with PFI. We asked the Health Minister, Earl Howe, for his view.
We got a statement which said past PFIs had been overambitious and too expensive. This government had introduced stricter rules. It was helping to hold poor-performing companies to account.
I warned all those years ago that there was a catch. Some PFIs are working, but other trusts are struggling to cope with poorly designed buildings and slow responses to change, and the payments are tipping many hospitals into the red. So, was I right? I think I was. We didn't play our PFIs right. Has the present government dealt us a better hand? We'll have to wait and see.
The autism spectrum is very broad, so how each person handles their difficulties can vary immensely. One rural teenager has developed his own unique coping strategy. He has created a whole cartoon world complete with characters, and his brother is bringing it to life.
Yeah! Hello, what's your name? Psychedelic the name, and making music is my game.
Meet Jack Bray, a larger-than-life teenager with a passion for entertainment, comedy and creativity.
And a one for my cool disco friends.
And like most teenagers, he loves to wind up his older brother.
Are you daft on the head? It's a Wednesday.
Oh, what happens on a Wednesday?
I kick you on the knee, that's why. Bonk. Ow!
But Jack is autistic and he has a unique way of coping with the many problems that it poses for him.
Jack has developed his own inner cartoon world, his own fantasy world.
The name of his world is called Cartoonopolis, and I think that's come from many different cartoons.
To actually believe that you live there, to believe you got another family.
His accent's American?
Yeah, that's all absolutely fascinating to me.
Jack's day is dominated by cartoons. He absorbs them, recycles them and reinvents them.
Come in a
permanent American cartoon voice.
Well, 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 look who's entered my humble room. My name is Jack Bray, your host.
So, could Jack imagine a world without cartoons?
That would be terrible. Cartoons is what I live for. Because I feel like there's a part of me in them. Part of them in me.
Jack's coping strategy is welcomed by his parents.
Cartoon world's given him speech, expression, and he knows where to use the expression. What did you think?
Confidence.
Confidence. It's given him support.
Well, the thing is, he always wants to be the baddie.
Yeah, it's given him support where he's nervous and anxious. He can jump into that world and he talks himself through stuff.
Jack's autism was identified at an early age, and like most parents in their position, Bev and Nigel have constantly made adjustments to accommodate it.
He can't go out by himself in the road. He cannot go to the shops by himself.
Can't cross a road.
He can't cross a road.
Can't catch a bus.
Can't catch a bus, yeah. You've got to make sure his personal hygiene is attended to. Give him his dignity, give him his voice, and give him his freedom. But on the other hand, he's so vulnerable.
The family were delighted when Jack got a place at a school in nearby West Kirby for children with special educational needs. Here, he has the support and specialist care his condition requires.
I've made a poster about a cool movie that's called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Autism is a lifelong condition that affects the way people communicate and how they interact with each other, and also affects the way that people see the world. It is actually a spectrum, so it can vary in its degree of difficulty for people to cope. Yeah, do you know what sort of plants they are?
Tomato plants.
Well done. Because Jack finds the world very confusing and very tiring, he finds it much easier to retreat into his own little world and go into his fantasy. And that's something that he can control. He's totally in control of that, whereas the outside world can be quite scary.
Now there is a new way to understand Jack's world, thanks to his big brother. Lewis Bray is a promising actor with the Young Everyman Playhouse in Liverpool. He's written a one-man play based on his brother's autism and his imaginary world. Welcome to Cartoonopolis.
Mom, I don't want to put my pants on. Mom, please, I don't want to.
Jack's inspired me to do the play just because of who he is and the struggles that he's been through. And through that, he's still managed to create this whole cartoon world full of crazy characters, as he would like to call it. And I feel like I just wanted to bring that to the stage, really, and show people and say, look at what he's doing, as well as look at the struggles that he goes through on a day-to-day basis, and kind of giving him a voice that he doesn't really have.
I know. This is a job for
Buzz Lightyear. It's an absolute whirlwind of comedy. It's a fast-paced, really intense piece of drama that should be quite emotional. And also, I think there's a slight political edge on a couple of the moments, especially focusing where Jack was very young and the awareness around autism wasn't what it is today.
As well as playing the role of his brother, Lewis also plays himself and his parents.
Oh, hiya, Jackie. How are you? How's Martin? Very good, yeah. Lewis, will you stop pestering me?
I was delighted for Jack and delighted for Lewis.
People could see what we see about Jack, the funny side of Jack. And some of the antics he gets up to is really funny. And the next breath he's got you crying. That's Jack. And hopefully that's going to come across in the play.
Would you like some crisps with that, Jack? Oh, yeah. Can I have cheese and onion? No, really salted. No, cheese and onion. No, really salted. No, cheese and onion. All right, okay, here you go.
And what do you want on these sandwiches, Jack?
8 mayonnaise, please.
Okay. He's got the most fantastic relationship with Lewis because they've come out the best of buds. Really good buds.
The bond's just getting stronger and stronger and stronger. It's like twins. They really are.
Jack has his own views on his brother.
Cool, smart, and give me a little bit of annoying. Don't tell him that.
As opening night draws near, Lewis gets to look around the venue where he'll perform the show.
Cool. What do you think? When we were younger, I didn't understand autism as well as I do now, and we didn't have the bond that we have now. But as we've got older and I've become to understand why Jack does certain things, and I understand it from a carer's point of view, I understand it from a brother's point of view, I feel like we've just become the best of friends.
Cartoonopolis makes the best food.
Jack is as heavily involved in the play as he can be, especially with the cartoon and creative side. I've kind of asked him for every character that we've used, really, and gone, oh, what do you think this character would be? Oh, what's his backstory? It's actually coming from his thoughts and creativity.
Wait a minute. I know. This is a job for Buzz Lightyear.
I think it's out there to challenge, to provoke, and create conversation, debate, everything. I think it should be uncomfortable at times, and I think it should be enjoyable. And if you can wrap that all into one, then it's also a little bit magical.
Cartoons are my life.
Autism is just a diagnosis. Jack is Jack.
What the? Who are you?
It's my hope for the play that it opens up a world of understanding.
We all learned something that day.
Well, I hope you enjoyed Monday to Life. So, until we meet again, arrivederci.
And you can see Cartoonopolis at Liverpool's Playhouse Theatre next month. We're back 7:30 on Monday. Until then, goodbye.
Next week, we discover how thousands of written-off cars return to our roads each year and ask whether they'd be safe in an accident.
You could go and buy a second-hand vehicle and not know what its history is, not know whether it's been repaired properly.
These people that bodge these for a quick buck cover up the damage.
And then it's returned to our roads. You could well be exposed to serious danger.
Hello, I'm Sophie Long with your 90-second update. What will an anti-austerity party winning the Greek election mean for Europe? The country's new Prime Minister, sworn in today, wants to renegotiate their huge financial bailout. That could mean a tough battle with other EU leaders. History's been made in the Church of England. Libby Lane's become the first ever female bishop. One man objected during the ceremony. Her post is in Stockport. A Greek fighter jet has crashed during takeoff at a military base in Spain. 10 people were killed, another 13 were hurt when it burst into flames. 2 years ago, Lance Armstrong confessed to being a drugs cheat. Now the disgraced former cyclist told us if he could turn back time, he'd probably do it again. But he says he wants to be forgiven. Benedict Cumberbatch has tonight said he is an idiot and devastated to have caused offence. It's after he talked about coloured actors during a debate on US television about a lack of diversity on British screens.
Hello, I'm Annabelle Tiffin. The latest from the northwest. A windsurfer has died off the Lancashire coast. Lifeboat crews and helicopters searched in vain throughout the night for 61-year-old Giles Stothart after he was reported missing by friends. Anthony Lewis is 20 and has learning disabilities. He was told he couldn't go in Legoland at the Trafford Centre because he didn't have a child with him. They've apologised but won't change their child protection rules. Tomorrow's weather, a cloudy and breezy day with outbreaks of light rain or drizzle with highs of 8.
You know the rules. Make your money, pay your dues, don't meddle in politics.